Hello and welcome to the latest in our series of GSA Snapshot webinars. During these 30-minute sessions, we dig into different topics of interest to the global mobile ecosystem, really drawing on the depth and breadth of GSA research to provide what we hope and believe will be invaluable and unique insights into the current state of 4G and 5G networks, technologies, spectrum and devices globally. In today's snapshots, the team are going to share the latest global data on the deployment of 5G Standalone. First, a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into today's event. We're joined by Jordan Cox and Luke Pearce and the GSA research team. Jordan will present the data and then we're joined by Luke for the Q&A at the end, and by Joe Barrett, President of GSA. To ask any questions to the team, please use the Q&A function on the sidebar. Feel free to pose your questions as we go through the data and the insights, and the team will address as many as possible at the end of the session. You are able to download the presentation at any point during the event by moving your mouse over the slides and clicking on the little download icon that should appear in the top right of the screen. And immediately following this live event, you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand recording and to the summary 5G Standalone report. But to get things started, I'll hand over to Joe to kick things off. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. So for those that don't know GSA, there's just a quick intro for everybody. GSA has been promoting the 3GPP technology roadmap for 25 years. So October was our 25th anniversary, and we'll be having a big event in Edinburgh in the next few weeks. Key thing, as you said, we've got a lot of industry data and intelligence that we collect and share through our Gambod databases. That's available to members and associates. There's lots of free reports that you can download for free, but if you want the real data behind that, then you do need to subscribe. We've got a very large spectrum group, a private mobile networks group, a standards group, and a very successful 4G, 5G fixed wireless access forum. We're doing a lot of work in the industry and promoting what's happening. So our research is very much around devices. We've started looking into the satellite industry for 5G, tracking operators, spectrum and auctions, chipsets, focusing on standards, as well as we moved from 5G to 5G Advanced and eventually, at some point in the future, 6G. So with that, I'll pass over to Jordan, who will take you through the latest research on 5G Standalone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar on 5G Standalone today. I'm Jordan Cox, and I'm representing the GSA's research team as part of CCS Insight's role as the GSA's exclusive research provider. What we'll be showing you today are the latest figures from our 5G Standalone report. The figures you'll see today are the latest published in October and take into account all data from public sources up to the end of September 2023. This webinar will also give you an overview of the current global picture for 5G Standalone and how it looks to be shaping up moving forward. The GSA is tracking the continuing emergence of 5G Standalone technology for public and private networks and mobile network operators, as well as chipsets and devices. And as an overview, 5G Standalone is a network architecture specifically using a 5G core network to support 5G radio access, rather than relying on a 4G or LTE core network as seen in 5G non-standalone networks. And this allows for a more efficient and flexible use of 5G technology and enables some of the benefits of 5G Standalone, such as higher speeds, lower latency, improved security, and enables things like network slicing, which provide new revenue opportunities. Now, before delving into the specifics of 5G Standalone, let's take a panoramic view of the global landscape in 5G technology. Of course, it's no surprise that 5G technology is rapidly ascending on a global scale, witnessing a steep surge in adoption rates. And since the outset of 2023, we've noted an impressive addition of 57 operators rolling out 5G mobile or fixed wireless access services. This surge reflects a remarkable escalation from 243 operators at the start of the year, marking a substantial 23.4% increase. And noteworthy industry players like One in New Zealand, Airtel in Nigeria, and Etisalat in the United Arab Emirates have all embarked on their inaugural 5G service offerings this year. Notably, one of India's major operators, Reliance Jio, also joined the 5G service domain this year, becoming the country's second after Bharti Airtel's launch last October. This expansion significantly augments the adoption of 5G in the world's most populous country. The progress in 5G mobile technology has been particularly pronounced this year, with substantial launches across prominent nations and markets. Operators like Dance Air in Belgium, Ufone in the Netherlands, and Mayfab in Nigeria have significantly contributed to the tally, pushing the count of launched or soft-launched 5G mobile services to 290 operators spanning 113 countries. This upsurge indicates that operators recognise a burgeoning 5G ecosystem, prompting greater investment in developing technology to benefit their clientele. Moreover, 5G fixed wireless access services catering to high-speed internet access via wireless communication have been pivotal, especially in remote or underserved regions. And as of the end of September, this sector has witnessed launches by 152 operators across 70 countries, featuring significant players like China Mobile Hong Kong, O2 Slovakia, and AT&T in the United States. Now, taking a closer look at 5G Standalone, the GSA has identified 121 operators in 55 countries actively investing in 5G Standalone through launches, tests, license acquisitions, and launch planning. However, the progression of 5G Standalone has been slower than anticipated in recent years, experiencing a notable slowdown in the first half of this year. And out of the 578 operators investing in 5G, only 21% are reported to be directing their investments towards 5G Standalone. Now, several factors can contribute to this lower adoption rate, the first being complexity and cost. Of course, the shift to 5G Standalone demands substantial investments in new hardware and software, necessitating a complete overhaul of the 5G core network. This initial financial commitment may be a deterrent for some operators. The second being interoperability and compatibility. Non-standalone networks can leverage existing 4G infrastructure, making the transition from 4G networks much more seamless. And the compatibility of non-standalone networks with prior infrastructure could be a contributing factor to the delay in the adoption of 5G Standalone. And thirdly, market demand and technological maturity. Some operators may perceive that current non-standalone networks adequately meet present demand and customer needs, and consequently, they might postpone transitioning to 5G Standalone until there is a much more clear demand and the technology becomes much more standardized and widespread. While some operators may prefer to wait for proven use cases to emerge before they invest in the new technology. But despite these challenges, a positive shift is evident during the third quarter, and this trend appears set to continue as we approach the year end and move into the next. It's important to note that the spike in overall 5G adoption during the third quarter is partly attributed to the GSA's review of data sources. And as of the end of September, 5G Standalone has been launched by 47 operators across 27 countries. A closer examination at a regional level reveals that North America and Asia are witnessing the most substantial levels of 5G Standalone launches. Early adopters, including operators in China, South Korea, and Japan, have been at the forefront. Notably, Reliance Jio in India has recently joined this group. And in the United States, networks like T-Mobile, or more recently Dish Network, have been established for some time. The Middle East has also seen significant developments, with notable networks such as Etisalat in the United Arab Emirates and operators in Saudi Arabia gaining prominence. Additionally, networks in Australia, South Africa, and Brazil have embraced 5G standalone technology. However, Europe presents a more varied landscape, experiencing recent activity, including Free Austria's launch in September of last year, Telefonica in Spain, and Vodafone in the UK unveiling 5G Ultra as the country's inaugural 5G standalone network. And the growth and deployment of 5G standalone networks appears poised to continue in the upcoming months and years, as evidenced by a total of 121 operators across 55 countries actively investing in this technology. And among them, 21 operators are actively deploying 5G standalone, including noteworthy names such as BT in the UK, Bharti Airtel in India, and Spark in New Zealand. Additionally, nearly 50 operators have plans to launch their own 5G standalone networks, underscoring the global trend of increased investment in this technology. And upon closer inspection of the geographical landscape, Europe emerges as a hotspot for 5G standalone activity, with notable plans in countries such as France, Sweden, and Norway, where operators are gearing up for launches in the coming months and years. Many operators worldwide are currently in the evaluation and trial phase, exemplified by Telkomsel in Indonesia and T-Mobile in Poland, to name just a couple. And whilst parts of Central Asia, Africa, and Central and South America are not currently investing in 5G standalone, there is potential for growth in the coming years. And pioneering this potential investment, both MTN in Uganda and Multisource in South Africa are spearheading efforts to bring 5G standalone to the African continent. And whilst much of our discussion has centred around 5G standalone support for public networks, a landscape marked by mass-scale implementation and substantial costs, it's important to highlight its growing prevalence in the realm of private mobile networks. These private networks are often deployed within campuses or industrial facilities. And our research has identified over 1,100 organisations equipped with private networks, with an impressive 44% of them harnessing the capabilities of 5G. And among these, 68 organisations are specifically noted to be utilising 5G standalone, though this number could be even higher. And the appeal of 5G standalone for organisations lies in its myriad of benefits, facilitating use cases that were not feasible on 4G networks. And this is especially true for applications demanding ultra-reliable low latency, high bandwidth, and capacity. And some examples include data-intensive applications like high-resolution computer vision, or the implementation of augmented reality and virtual reality in training or maintenance operation scenarios. And for operators, the deployment of 5G standalone networks with a 5G core opens up avenues to leverage network slicing capabilities on public networks. This enables the provision of hybrid and virtual private line networks to organizations, presenting operators with opportunities to further maximize revenue. And of course, in the realm of any emerging technology, such as 5G, the ecosystem of devices and terminals is integral to its success. At the GSA, we not only monitor the proliferation of networks and operators adopting these technologies, but also track the chipsets and devices that support both 4G and 5G technologies. And as of September 2023, our records indicate an impressive count of over 2,000 announced devices equipped with support for 5G standalone, reflecting a remarkable increase of 192% since the close of 2021. And also, an interesting trend worth noting is the evolution in device compatibility. Most of the 5G devices launched today are also boasting support for 5G standalone, showcasing a substantial growth trajectory from 35.6% in 2019 to an impressive 90.2% by October of this year. And the noteworthy surge in 5G standalone device support is primarily attributed to its incorporation into a vast array of modems and chipsets. Among the diverse landscape of cellular devices, smartphones take the lead, constituting 63% of devices with support for 5G standalone technology. And additionally, 5G standalone finds significant utility in the realm of fixed wireless access. And our database captures a substantial 208 commercial fixed wireless access customer premises equipments. And as highlighted previously, the adoption of 5G standalone extends to industrial applications. The GSA has identified 190 modules worldwide that support 5G standalone, with industrial routers and hotspots contributing 5% and 2% respectively. And whilst the industrial ecosystem for 5G standalone is evolving at a slower pace compared to smartphones and consumer products, we anticipate a considerable influx of new devices and products in the very near future. And when it comes to frequency deployment, 5G standalone is making its mark on various frequencies globally, with the majority of networks being deployed on frequency range 1, also commonly known as sub-6 GHz. This slide in front of you delves into the devices supporting 5G standalone and their corresponding frequency bands, reflecting the broader trend in 5G networks. C-band, situated in the 3.5 GHz frequency range under band N78, emerges as the most prevalent band for 5G standalone devices. And following closely are mid-range frequencies like 2.7 GHz, boasting support from 1,678 devices. However, frequency range 2 or millimeter wave frequencies are yet to become commonplace. Only 8 newer premium chipsets currently support 5G standalone within this spectrum, and these devices do not feature prominently on the top 25 list presented here on this slide. Notably, millimeter wave is primarily utilized for fixed wireless access, and we anticipate a potential rise in its adoption with the rollout of 5G advanced technologies as mobility challenges and use cases are further refined. So that brings us to the end of the presentation there. So I'll hand over to Luke for the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Jordan. So we've had a few questions, but please, if you do have any, now we've got a bit of time, so please submit your questions into the box at the moment. So the first one, Jordan, there's a question kind of talking about Africa, obviously notably only just a couple in Africa. Why is Africa kind of struggling with the rollout? Can you expand on that a little bit?
I would say the main reason being that there's still a large amount of the population across Africa and across the continent that are still using 3G and 4G networks. And there's a very large ecosystem of devices supporting those networks in comparison to 5G. So that's one reason. I'd also say, as mentioned in this webinar, there's a very high cost of replacing the now highly established LTE infrastructures, which is probably playing a major part in putting operators off in investing in 5G networks and, as a result, 5G standalone networks also.
Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. Okay, and there's actually a question around kind of China as well. So if you could just explain a bit about maybe what's happening in China. Yeah,
okay. So currently in China, 3 of the major operators, those being China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom, have all launched 5G standalone services back in October of 2019, I believe it was. So yeah, those 3 major operators have launched in China, so there's definite progress in China, and probably also one of the front runners in this space. And then also, I believe it's China Broadnet are also piloting 5G standalone technology as well. So definite progress in China. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, getting quite a few questions now. I'm actually struggling to keep up a little bit, but that's good. Good that we've got plenty. There's one about which operators are the most advanced in terms of the introduction of network slicing for use by consumers. I think, as Jordan mentioned there, China has been pretty advanced with all 3 operators offering kind of 5G standalone services. Certainly a lot of activity in terms of kind of the hybrid and virtual private networks in China as well. So that would probably be one of those. But of course, there are many operators around the world with 5G standalone and also implementing network slicing for consumers there as well. There are a few questions on kind of the ratio of 5G SA subscribers to NSA subscribers. That's not data we currently have at the moment. There's also one about the verticals in terms of adoption of private 5G SA networks. That can be found in our private mobile networks database. We can separate, there's a report on the website for private networks, and you can kind of look at all the different verticals there and how that breaks down by industry and whether it's 4G or 5G as well. So I'd encourage you to look at that as well. In terms of data with we've got spectrum band data. That's something we're currently looking to add in, particularly for 5G standalone. We have it by operator for 5G generally, but we will be looking to break that out between non-standalone and standalone in the next few months. In terms of 5G SA coverage, again, that's kind of similar answer. We're introducing more more data in terms of the geographic penetration of 5G as well. So stay tuned for data on that. Plenty of other questions coming in at the moment, just kind of working my way back to some of the others. Do iPhones have 5G SA? Jordan, do you want to have a look at that while I just look at some others?
Yeah, of course. So I believe from all iPhones from the iPhone 12 have the hardware to support 5G standalone now. So although whether it be enabled on a device depends on the country and probably the operator as well within that country. So it's probably very much on a use-by-use basis. But yes, since the iPhone 12, they do support 5G standalone, I believe.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Someone's asked about where 5G SA is commercially available. Is the coverage nationwide, or is it more kind of, they've said spotty, but kind of just a few locations or cities? I think, I don't know, Jordan, if you have a response to this, but I think generally, the rollout would be city, but it would depend, I think, in terms of the operator's strategy in whichever country. But generally, I would expect it to roll out kind of city to city. And obviously, as we're, as an operator would launch that in the early phase, it might be just over one location with a soft launch on for certain devices in a certain location, but then gradually roll that out and switch that on across the different countries. The different cities in that country as well. Okay, very good. Jordan, what about where we can find standalone deployments on Gambod? Would you just talk about some of that?
Yeah, of course. So as mentioned at the start of the webinar, there is a 5G standalone report that's available on the GSA's website that goes into more detail around 5G standalone and all the different aspects we've discussed here as well, but also on the Gambod database. It can be found on under the operators database, but also under public networks database and the supporting filter or supports filter that you can find on the left-hand side when you access Gambod.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. We've got one from Sam here about how long it takes for an operator with non-standalone to fully roll out standalone once it decides to make the switch. So it's an interesting question. I think that would vary very much depending on the operator in the country. As Jordan's mentioned with some of the examples in the presentation, some like particularly those in India went straight to standalone, for instance. So that's certainly a kind of different strategy that we're seeing. But as Jordan mentioned, the majority of operators at the moment kind of have non-standalone, so that will be a transition to standalone. We can look at a couple of examples to see how long that takes. I think Vodafone in the UK, which we mentioned is quite a recent one, being here in the UK, having just rolled out standalone. That's probably been kind of maybe 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. So it will depend on the operator. It will depend on the strategy. It will depend on whether standalone architecture is part of that operator strategy, because as we've seen, not all operators around the world are necessarily investing in that. But yeah, it can be quicker, can be shorter, but certainly different strategies and different operators will be slightly different. We've got a question around which phones are supporting 26 gigahertz. I think, Jordan, how would the respondent find that answer?
Through the Gambod database, you mean?
Yeah. So someone was looking at which phones were to support it. Yeah,
exactly. So through the Gambod database, you can find that under the devices tab or the devices database within Gambod, and then navigating to, again, the supports function or the frequencies function filters on the left-hand side, and that will allow you to filter down to 26 gigahertz or any other frequency range you're looking for.
Very good. Okay. We've got a question about VoNR as well, voice over new radio, which is the the implementation for voice on 5G networks over VoLTE. And yeah, that comes hand in hand with standalone sometimes. The question is, when 5G standalone is commercially implemented, will VoNR also be launched together? I don't necessarily think that's true. I'll have to double check that technically, but we can, within Gambod, you can look at which operators have launched VoNR, and I think a lot of the 5G standalone vendors have that capability. I'm not sure if it's always unanimous. I'll have to double check that, but certainly that you can find which operators have VoNR on the Gambod website as well. So that will be helpful to you as well. We've got a question about when 5G will be available in Turkey. I'm not sure we'll be able to comment on that one. We know.
Sorry, Luke. I'm just interrupting your answer there. For Turkey, I know that there's been quite a few soft launches within Turkey itself, particularly from Turkcell, Turk Telecom, and I believe in Vodafone Turkey. So potentially it could be in the near future. There's been quite a few soft launches, but commercially at the moment, no commercial launches there.
Okay, thanks very much. And maybe another one for you then, Jordan. We've got 47 operators having launched 5G SA, but launched doesn't mean full coverage. How many of those operators are fully deployed yet? Can we tell that in terms of, there's some soft launches in there as well, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So within that figure, there are soft launches, and also, yes, it is commercial launches. In terms of full coverage, I will probably need to come back on that question and reply after the webinar today. But yes, soft launches are also included in that figure.
Yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, we're pretty close to the half-hour mark now, so just leave a couple minutes for any extras. Keith's got a question on the timeframes for millimeter wave spectrum used widely for fixed access versus 5G mobile services. That is, as Jordan mentioned, millimeter wave spectrum is primarily, I would say, being used for fixed wireless at the moment. With 5G Advanced, though, that will potentially bring those capabilities for mobility for millimeter wave, and we may see more 5G mobile services rolling out as well within the millimeter wave spectrum. So yeah, we'll keep on top of it as we do, and check when those deployments are launched and on what spectrum band they're being launched. But millimeter wave, although it's fairly small at the moment, we would expect to see that increase. Okay, yeah, there's a few more actually, but I think we're probably kind of a little bit close to the half-hour mark now. So any more, we will follow up via email if you hasn't been answered today. But thank you very much, everyone, for your questions, and I'll just pass over now just to Richard to wrap that up.
Great, thanks very much, Luke, and thank you, Jordan, as well. Just to repeat, after the event, you will receive an email with a link to the full recording and also a link to the summary report that Jordan and Luke have referred to. The full 5G standalone report, which includes a detailed list of operators investing in 5G standalone and the status of that investment, is available to all employees of GSA members and associate organizations via the GSA website. So if your employer, if your organization is an associate member, you can access that. If you're not, then encourage someone with budget to inquire about joining. In the coming weeks and months, we will have more events. We've got up on the screen here, digging into key themes. The next snapshot event will look at the status of 4G and 5G fixed wireless access. And then we'll close out the year with a review of the key 5G milestones and data from the past year. For the latest updates on all GSA research and activities and our upcoming events, please do follow GSA on the social channels you'll see here. And if you visit gsacom.com, you can subscribe to our weekly Research Digest email, so you get all our reports delivered straight into your inbox on a Monday morning. Finally, on behalf of the GSA team, I just want to say again, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you again at the next GSA event. Many thanks.